Darth Talon started out as a Twi-Lek on Ryloth. She had red skin, which was a very rare skin color for Twi-Lek, and they were referred to as Lethin. Somewhere around 137 ABY, Talon joined Darth Krayt's Sith Order and was trained on Korriban to become a Sith assassin under her master, Darth Ruin. She was very strong in the Force, and considered a great prodigy for the Sith, and, as was usual for the way the one Sith Order of Darth Krayt worked, she was fully indoctrinated into his viewpoints and was fully loyal to him. She favored Form 4 Ataru, often implementing a lot of acrobatics, kicks, and flips during her duels, and was proficient in a lot of dark side Force attacks like Force Crush and Force Lightning. When she completed her training, she was ordered by Darth Krayt to kill her master Darth Ruin, and she did without any hesitation. Impressed by her feats, Darth Krayt went on to make her part of one of his two hands, which were two selected Sith warriors and assassins that only reported to him and were completely loyal to his will. As the hand of the Emperor Krayt, she went on her first mission to capture the Princess Marissa Fel to lure out the Imperial renegade Rowan Fel. During the ensuing mission, she came face to face with Cade Skywalker, the latest descendant of the greatest Jedi to have ever lived, Luke Skywalker. Although she put up a good fight, especially as she was eager to prove herself on her first mission, she ultimately failed the mission, and the princess managed to escape with the help of Cade. Darth Talon got injured during the fight and expected that Darth Krayt would execute her for her failure. However, the latter, upon learning of Skywalker's involvement, spared her life as he still saw use in her, ordering her to use her rage to now hunt down and capture Skywalker. Doing as told, she tracked him down and confronted Cade once again. Although Cade at first managed to overpower her thanks to the intervention and help of the second hand of the Emperor, Darth Nihil, Talon managed to capture Skywalker. Ecstatic, they brought him before Krayt, who intended to turn him to the dark side of the Force. After an audience between Cade and Krayt decided that Cade should be taught in the ways of the One Sith, having Darth Talon become the master of Cade, although at this point Cade only seemingly feigned interest in joining the Sith. Darth Talon did as told and began training Cade in the Sith teachings. She tried to convince him that his destiny lied with the Sith, and over time, the two formed a close bond. They even started sleeping with each other, although Talon remained convinced that Cade wasn't actually serious about joining the Sith. During Cade's final trial, he had to kill a fellow Jedi of his. Cade refused, and when Krayt killed the Jedi in front of him, he almost succumbed to the dark side if it weren't for the spirit of the late Cole Skywalker to appear and keep him on the light side. After that, Cade knew his true path, took up the lightsaber of Cole from Krayt's trophy room, and attempted to escape. Darth Talon tried to stop him, but was fatally wounded when Cade stabbed her through the abdomen, mortally wounding her. She survived, however, and recovered after months of back-to-tank treatment. After that, she remained on Krayt's side and did different missions for him, despite not being able to prevent him from being betrayed by Darth Warlock. She stayed loyally by his side when he resurrected and came back to power and fought alongside Krayt against the traitorous Warlock. During the final battle where Cade Skywalker, alongside a Jedi strike team, attempted to kill Darth Krayt, Darth Talon went face-to-face with Skywalker once again, only to find herself completely outmatched, as Skywalker had grown more powerful than they had ever thought. Skywalker defeated her, and then went on to kill Darth Krayt, ending the rule of the One Sith and their Emperor. With her master dead, Darth Talon went into hiding, swearing that the Sith would eventually return by infiltrating the Galactic Alliance and striking at them from the shadows. Darth Treya was originally a human Jedi called Kreia during the era of the Old Republic. She reached the rank of Master and dedicated much of her time towards the study of history of the Force. She especially started to question the concept of power as the Jedi had laid it out and started questioning these values. During her time as a Master, she taught several different students, often bestowing upon them these critical insights, telling them to think for themselves and act freely, not to be bound solely by the rules that the Jedi Order bestows upon them. One of these students would be Revan, the Jedi prodigy who'd later go on to defy the Council's wishes and participate in the war against the Mandalorians. As several of Kreia's students, including Mitra Surik, joined Revan's cause, the Jedi Council deemed her flawed teachings as a reason for her pupils to all go on that path, thus exiling Kreia from the Order. An exiled Kreia then started wandering across the galaxy, trying to figure out whether or not her teachings were truly flawed, being conflicted if her Grey Jedi philosophy was truly the reason that Revan led all the others down this dark path. Following Darth Revan's trail eventually led her to the Sith world of Malachor V, where she discovered the Traya's Academy, which was strong in the dark side and Revan's former stronghold. The Dark Jedi, which were left by Revan to her surprise, didn't attack her, but rather showed her the different manuscripts in the Academy. There, she came to the realization that Revan had turned due to him realizing that there was greater power in the Sith teachings. Due to this, and the strength of the dark side on Malachor, Kreia decided to embrace the Sith and took on the mantle of Darth Traya, the Lord of Betrayal. As Darth Treya, she wanted to destroy the Jedi whom she felt had wronged her. Continuing on Revan's path, she took over the Traya's Academy and started to train Sith warriors there to intent on toppling the Republic. She also found Sion and Nihilus, whom she convinced to join her in her cause to destroy the Jedi who had betrayed her. Together, 3 Sith Lords formed the Sith Triumvirate. She was the master of the two, and taught Sion a lot about the Jedi. Nihilus in turn was taught how to use his Force Drain ability to drain entire planets to satisfy his hunger. However, the union of the 3 Sith Lords didn't hold. Nihilus and Sion both grew wary of Treya and decided to plot against her. Sion deemed her teachings as flawed and to weaken the Sith. Also, he didn't like the way her words seemed to seek to manipulate him. The two confronted Treya, with Sion beating her in hand-to-hand combat and Nihilus stripping her of the Force and exiling her once again. She had been betrayed by both the Sith and the Jedi now. Nihilus and Sion then started to wage war on the Jedi, almost single-handedly destroying the entire order. Treya, though, didn't seek revenge on the 2 Sith who had betrayed her. Rather, she started to see the bigger picture, questioning if the betrayal and suffering she endured was due to the Force, this seemingly all-powerful entity who was responsible for the countless wars between the light and dark side for a millennia. She felt like the Force was robbing people of their individuality and influencing them to alter the fate of the galaxy as it had done with Revan. With this thought firmly in mind, she swore herself to destroy the Force, to free everyone from this entity that seemed to want to impose its will upon all of them. To do that, she needed to create a bigger wound in the Force. She went on to scour the galaxy to find Meetra Surik, a former student of hers who had been exiled and cut herself off from the Force after witnessing the horrors of her war efforts against the Mandalorian, when she activated the mass shadow generator. She knew that Meetra Surik as an exile had cut herself off from the Force, yet still survived, which no one else had previously done before. Furthermore, Surik had a unique ability of Force bonding, which allowed her to form strong bonds with those she interacted with. She found Surik just in time before the Sith could. Who knew she was one of the last Jedi alive, and taught her how to get in tune with the Force again. This created a Force bond between the two, which Kreia claimed was so strong that should she be killed, Meetra would die as well. When fleeing the Sith, Kreia confronted Darth Sion once again and engaged him in battle, resulting in her losing one of her hands. However, Treya still managed to escape with Surik. She went on to teach Surik about the Jedi and traveled with her to find other like-minded companions strong in the Force, restoring the strength of the exiled Jedi. Her plan to destroy the Force was to create an event similar to the one that caused Meetra Surik to become a wound in the Force. If she would be able to create enough wounds, it could potentially echo so strongly in the Force that it would ultimately destroy it. These wounds meant that if a Force-sensitive came in contact with them, they would be cut off from the Force entirely. This was her ultimate plan to destroy the Force, freeing the galaxy and the Force-sensitive individuals of the Force, and cutting all of them off from it. Treya thus continued journeying with Meetra Surik in order to seek out other Force-sensitive individuals and have Meetra create Force bonds with them as well. In time, though, she also started to influence Meetra with her teachings, wanting her to potentially carry her gray path about the Force forward in case she couldn't destroy the Force, and perhaps even form a new Jedi Order based on these principles of hers. She also wanted Meetra to understand her viewpoints and potentially understand once she did decide to act on destroying the Force. Furthermore, Kreia was fascinated by Meetra, who seemed to be acting entirely on her own will, unrelated to what the Force dictated to her. On Dantooine, the last remaining Jedi Council members recognized the danger that Sirik presented, explaining to her that she was a wound in the Force, and that due to her actions on Malachor, she carried the death of all beings that died in that battle, and that her reconnection to the Force was due to her feeding on death and the life energy of her companions, similar to Darth Nihilus. The Jedi wanted to, once again, strip Sirik of the Force as they feared her power to potentially destroy the Force itself, but Treya intervened. She couldn't allow that to happen. Before the Jedi could act, she unleashed a Force drain herself and drained all the Jedi of the Force, killing them as they were unwilling to let go of the Force. Kreia then took on the mantle of Darth Traya once again and fled the scene. She went back to Malachor 5, wanting to use the mass shadow generator to create yet another cataclysmic event on a larger scale that could then open an even larger wound in the Force. As she still had the Force bond to Mitra, she intended to use this bond to strengthen the wound in the Force when she submitted herself to yet another cataclysmic event that would then echo to everyone that Mitra had a Force bond with, which were the most Force-sensitive beings in the galaxy whom she had helped her seek out. She also forced Darth Sion to once again submit to her will. However, before activating the mass shadow generator, she needed Mitra Sirik to come to Malachor as well. The death of Sirik on Malachor, which was the wound in and of itself, would create the echo she needed, the Force wound dying on the wounded place of the Force. Sirik came soon after, confronting and defeating Darth Sion on Malachor. Standing before Treya, the two engaged in a lightsaber duel, in which Sirik cut off Treya's other remaining hand before landing a killing blow. In her dying words, Sirik forgave Treya for all her actions. Treya then admitted to Sirik that she had loved her and saw her as her greatest student. She was what the perfect Jedi was in her eyes, and that she secretly hoped that she would be defeated. It showed that Darth Treya never really wished to destroy the galaxy, rather wanting to see if her viewpoint was right or not. In the end, Mitra Sirik seemed to be able to turn towards a brighter future in comparison to the doom and gloom one she had envisioned for the galaxy in the endless cycles of war. She then died on Malachor, surrendering herself to the Force she hated so much, and her body was consumed by the activating mass shadow generator and the destruction of Malachor 5. Mitra Sirik escaped just in time and made her way to find her long-lost companion, Revan. Holy, I hope this segment was comprehensive. Lumaya, originally named Shira Ellen Kala Bree, was a Force-sensitive human who was born on Imperial Center of Coruscant during the height of Emperor Palpatine's rule. She was very loyal towards Imperial rule and trained in the Imperial Indoctrination program. Her commitment drew the attention of Darth Vader, who saw potential in her and accelerated her progress through elite Imperial programs. Among these was the Intelligence Academy on Karita, where Bree excelled, graduating at the top of her class. Impressed, Vader personally promoted her to the rank of Major and entrusted her with a covert mission: infiltrate the Rebel Alliance and bring about either the death or discrediting of Luke Skywalker, one of the Rebellion's most iconic figures and a budding Jedi. Bree succeeded in infiltrating the Alliance and even reached the rank of Captain. During a mission where they used captured T-fighters, she forced herself into a situation where Luke would shoot her down accidentally, thus undermining Skywalker's standing among his allies. The rebels, believing Luke had shot down one of their own, blamed Luke for his failure, and he himself was guilt-ridden. However, the mission left her severely injured and disfigured, as she had effectively been blown up. She was retrieved by Darth Vader, who had her rebuilt using cybernetics similar to his own life-supporting modifications. Reborn with a new body and a new name, she became Lumaya, Dark Lady of the Sith. Under Vader's guidance, she began learning the ways of the dark side in secret, serving as his shadow hand. In addition to her secret Sith training, Lumaya served as one of the Emperor's hands, which consisted of elite Force-sensitive assassins loyal directly to Palpatine, the other hand being Mara Jade. During this period, she made a pilgrimage to the ancient Sith world of Ziost. There, she forged her light whip, which was a lightsaber type that it was rarely ever seen. But while she was away, both of her Sith mentors, Palpatine and Vader, perished during the Battle of Endor. With their deaths and no formal Sith successor, Lumaya claimed the mantle of Sith Mistress despite her incomplete training. Consumed by a desire for revenge against Luke Skywalker and the Rebel Alliance, which she blamed for the downfall of her masters, she took on 2 different apprentices during her time plotting against the New Republic, planning to assemble a fleet to destroy them. She also reconnected with Imperial remnants. However, both of her apprentices would die to different circumstances, and she was left alone yet again. She returned to the Sith tomb world of Korriban to recalibrate her plans. Now in possession of a Sith Oracle Stone, she used it to monitor galactic events from a distance. By 25 ABY, she had abandoned her hiding place in the Outer Rim in favor of the ancient home of Sith Lord Vectivus, a former asteroid stronghold. There, she mastered the creation of Force Phantoms, illusions powered by the dark side. Around this time, she received an invitation from a new Sith Order on Korriban to join their ranks. Before she could respond, she was delayed by scouts of the invading Yuuzhan Vong. Lumiya evaded being captured and worked in the shadows to undermine their campaign against the galaxy. As galactic conflict deepened, Lumiya became convinced that only the dominance of a true Dark Lord of the Sith could restore order. This belief solidified after meeting Vergir, a former Jedi who had embraced Sith teachings. Under Vergir's mentorship, Lumiya completed her own Sith training. The two then conspired to continue the Sith legacy through a new successor. Rejecting the offer from the Korriban Sith, Lumiya and Vergir set their sights on Jacen Solo, grandson of Darth Vader and nephew of Luke Skywalker. They saw in him the potential to complete the Skywalker family's journey into the Sith. Vergir, who had embedded herself within the Yuuzhan Vong ranks, arranged for Jacen's capture. During his time with them, she began reshaping his philosophy and teaching him the ways of the Sith. Vergir died 3 years into the Yuuzhan Vong War, having fulfilled her role. Lumiya then spent over a decade preparing to guide Jacen toward his destiny. In 40 ABY, she initiated a carefully orchestrated series of events to manipulate galactic politics and draw Jacen into her orbit. She helped spark conflict between the Galactic Federation of Free Alliances and the Corellian system, aggravating tensions into open war. These machinations brought Jacen to Lumiya's hidden home, where she offered him the teachings of the Sith. He accepted, and for months she trained him in secret. Eventually, Lumiya revealed herself to the Jedi Order, distracting them from Jacen's transformation. By the time the Jedi understood her true intent, Jacen Solo had fully embraced the dark side and declared himself Darth Caedus. Having completed her mission and passed on the Sith legacy, Lumiya considered her purpose fulfilled. She confronted Luke Skywalker once more, and during a final duel, allowed herself to be killed by her old nemesis, believing that in her death, the Sith had truly returned, and her vengeance had been fulfilled. Zannah was the apprentice of Darth Bane and the second Sith Lord in the lineage of the Rule of Two. She was born on the planet Somov Rit. During her childhood, the Jedi arrived on her planet looking for recruits in their fight against Sith. As her cousins were gleeful to join the Jedi, Zannah went along in order to not be left behind, having a lot of potential in the Force herself. On their way to Ruusan, the ship was shot down by the Sith and crash-landed. Zannah and her cousin survived, but were forced to survive on their own on an unknown planet. Zannah befriended a local animal known as a bouncer. 2 Jedi, tasked with killing bouncers which were prone to sickness that made them go mad, killed her bouncer as well, as they didn't distinguish whether it was infected or not. In a fit of fury, she killed both Jedi with the dark side. This was the first time she came in contact with her dark side. Soon after, Darth Bane adopted the young girl, and she became his apprentice. The first test Bane set upon her was to find her own way off Ruusan and meet him on Onderon. This should prove she was worthy. Zannah did as asked. On the way to Onderon, she was met with a choice. A wealthy Republic family who took her along offered to take her in. She contemplated taking the easy route and leaving Bane behind, but decided against it, as she deemed the family weak after they shared that their mother had died as a Republic soldier against the Sith. She saw no use in joining a family that couldn't protect their own. With her choice settled, she met with Bane, determined to become a Sith. As Bane's apprentice, she also gained access to Freedon Nad's holocron, which taught a lot about dark side sorcery. Bane himself was unable to use these proficiently, as his connection to the Force was more natural and elemental. But Zannah could and was fascinated with them, absorbing the knowledge of Freedon Nad's. In time, she became very proficient in Sith sorcery. She also soon afterwards completed her double-bladed lightsaber. For Darth Bane, she traveled the galaxy and tried to get different factions to lean up against the Republic to keep it in a weakened state, now that the Sith Brotherhood no longer existed. She also infiltrated the Jedi Temple and even saved Darth Bane from dying when his Orbalisk armor was destroyed in a fight with the Jedi. Her Sith sorcery came in handy time and time again, as she turned people insane if necessary by showing them their greatest fears in the middle of battle. Bane grew impatient with her, as she didn't challenge him, believing it was due to her waiting for him to grow weak and old. But in truth, Zannah was cautious, as she saw her master growing weaker, that it could be a trap. Also, she wanted to have an apprentice ready already before challenging her master in order to be able to continue the rule of two. She came across a dark Jedi named Set Hearth, and made him her unwilling apprentice. Upon learning of Bane seeking to replace her with another apprentice and prolonging his own life, she saw that the time was nigh to challenge him. Set Hearth had also escaped with the holocron of Darth Andedu and seek to have life away from the rule of two. In their final fight, Zannah and Bane both activated their lightsabers, well aware that it was their last moment together. Bane's powerful strikes quickly overwhelmed Zannah at first, putting her on the defensive. Zannah knew that her Sith sorcery was an advantage that she had over her master, thus tried to use it and drive Bane insane. But the Dark Lord had a life full of pain, and had already conquered his fears during his lifetime. Desperate for an advantage, Zannah used her sorcery to call upon pure dark side tendrils with the energy of a nearby dark side nexus to attack her master. These tendrils managed to hold Bane back, causing him excruciating pain. But Bane was used to pain, and managed to break free and attack Zannah, who was focused on keeping the tendrils up with her sorcery. Bane knocked Zannah's lightsaber out of her hand and went in for the kill, but one of the tendrils then cut off his arm just before the lightsaber reached Zannah. Bane then grabbed her arm with his other hand and performed the essence transfer ritual. Inside her mind, she managed to defeat Bane and regain control over her body. Although Bane did leave an imprint on Zannah's mind, Zannah then took Darth Cognus as her apprentice and taught her everything just as Bane's rule of two intended. Eventually, she was succeeded by Darth Cognus, who bested her. As a fun fact to end the Zannah segment, our favorite lightsaber-collecting cyborg General Grievous eventually got his hand on Zannah's double-bladed lightsaber and added it to his collection. Darth Cognus was originally just known as the Huntress. She was a female Iktochi, the same species as Saesee Tiin, who lasted 1 second against Sidious during Palpatine's arrest, which is besides the point, I know. She was very strong in the Force and had frequent visions that she learned to control, eventually even able to gain small insights into possible futures. With that and her natural precognition abilities, she became a very successful assassin. That's also how she earned her name as the Huntress. Way into her years as an assassin, she was approached by Princess Sarah, who wanted to capture Darth Bane to figure out what his role was in her father's death. Alongside a team of 20 commandos, she should capture Bane and bring her to Sarah's dungeon. Sarah also gave the Cognus a vial of Synflax, which was a strong neurotoxin to sedate Bane. Although Cognus was unable to see the outcome of her upcoming battle through her visions, she was intrigued to be facing off against the Dark Lord of the Sith. In the following days, Cognus and her team infiltrated Bane's mansion when he was away, and set themselves up inside. Cognus also took Bane's personal holocron, although she didn't know what it was at the time. They set up several sonic detonators and had tangle guns to stun and slow the Dark Lord down. Once in range, she would use the neurotoxin to capture him. Bane, upon returning to his mansion, sensed that something was off. He quickly killed 3 of the assassins with Force Lightning and dodged their stun guns. Cognus was now face-to-face with Bane, having 2 blades that were covered in the neurotoxin. She threw 3 flash grenades at him, blinding him temporarily. That was all she needed, sliding in and cutting his arm with her blade. Bane was now under the effect of the Synflax. Although he still killed several more of the assassins, he eventually succumbed to the effects of the neurotoxins. Cognus had succeeded in capturing a Dark Lord of the Sith and was on the way to Princess Sarah's mansion with her prisoner. In her dungeon, Sarah tortured Bane and tried to get him to confess that he killed her father, unaware that it was Zannah who had done that. Cognus then saw in one of her visions that Bane would be set free soon. Although she knew that she should run now before he was free, she was hit with a feeling she hadn't given proper thought to before. She always felt that her life was meaningless at this point, but something in the Force was telling her that this was about to change. Adding to that Bane had been in her visions for years already, she felt that there was something there. Her vision came through. Bane was freed and fought off Zannah, who at the same time tried to challenge him for the mantle of Dark Lord. Bane fended her off and escaped. As Bane made his way to a ship, Cognus stood before him. To Bane's surprise, Cognus kneeled down and presented Bane's lightsaber and holocron she took, asking to serve him and hunt down Princess Sarah for him in exchange for Sith training. Bane agreed, and together they set off. On board of the ship, she opened up about her Force visions and how they were often accurate. She then tracked down Sarah and killed her. Bane took her with him and gave her the title of Darth, but before he could train her, he had to kill Zannah. Before summoning her for their final confrontation, Bane asked her if he was victorious in her visions, but Cognus replied that it always changed. Sometimes Zannah was victorious, sometimes Bane. With that, Bane called for Zannah to come to their location. While waiting for Zannah to arrive, Bane lectured her on the Rule of Two, how it was the way forward for all Sith. When Zannah arrived, Bane assured her that Cognus was merely a spectator. Cognus quickly added that she was willing to serve whomever was the victor of their duel, only wanting to serve the most powerful Sith. As the two Sith Lords battled before her, Cognus was in awe at their speed, barely being able to follow their attacks with her eyes as they fought across the plain. When Zannah eventually was victorious, Cognus introduced herself and swore her loyalty to the Sith. Zannah then completed her training, and together, they made the Sith stronger. Cognus eventually took on an apprentice called Darth Millennial and defeated Zannah in a duel to the death, carrying the Sith forward. Although Darth Millennial eventually deemed himself to be an unworthy apprentice who didn't want to follow the Rule of Two, Cognus took on a new apprentice to ensure that Bane's legacy would live on.